Welcome. We'll begin momentarily.
Can you hear me? Oh, perfect. Excellent. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Kajacob. I am a solutions consultant with ARCOS. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this session and to the conference in general. We're so happy to have you here. In a moment here, Frederick's going to come to the stage and present on crew management perspectives. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions and you're too shy to get on the microphone to ask them, you are welcome to enter them into the app. Under your breakout session, there is an area that says Ask a Question. You can also, if you think of it after the session, add a question in there and we'll get answers out to you at a later time. So, and also the last thing I want to remind you of, at the end, will you all please fill out the survey on the session so that we know what you liked, what could have been better, and what we can improve upon. So. Once again, thanks for attending, and I will now turn it over to Frederick. Frederick is with Lincoln Electric. Thanks, Frederick.
Thanks, Liz. Hopefully everyone got a chance to go out and get some coffee. I'm going to rely on your energy for this presentation, so be lively, ask questions, help me out a little bit. Everyone's talked about, and I'm going to stay down here too if that's okay. If you need me to get up on the stage, I feel it's a little too high for me and where I'm at. But everyone's been talking about how great it is to be in front of people again, and as an extrovert, I can say it's very relieving. But one thing that I've taken huge advantage of over the past couple of years for different presentations or reports is being able to talk to the camera and have my notes right in front of me, and I could look perfect like I was talking to the person, but really I'm reading the notes. So bear with me if I'm a little bit rusty on standing up here and not trying to read the slides or read notes, but at any rate, I'm here. One of the first things I'm going to cover is who I am. You don't start a conversation typically by just talking about the information. You get to know the person a little bit, so I wanted to do that for you all. So hopefully we could build some comfort. So show of hands, it said Lincoln Electric System. Who knows where Lincoln, Nebraska is? You all passed fourth grade geometry. That's great, because it's the capital city in Nebraska, so I'm sure that was an exam question sometime in grade school. That's where Lincoln Electric System's at. We serve the capital city. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but first, there's a highway there, and there's a town called Unadilla. I could ask for a show of hands, but I won't ask because no one's going to raise their hand. No one knows where Unadilla is. It's not a town, it's a village. There's 180 people. My family makes up 4 of those 180 people. And if you go down the road a little bit, you'll see the town called Syracuse, not Syracuse, New York. That's the metropolis for us, though, and it's about 2,000 people. I highlight that one because that's where my wife and I met in high school, and we live 6 miles from there now, so we feel very fortunate for that. That house on the right, that's our acreage a little bit north of town that we're very proud to have and be at. And in the middle is what we're really proud of, our 2 kids. We've got a 4-year-old son and a 4-month-old daughter, Gavin and Olivia. So they keep our hands full right now, and that's what we're occupied with between that and making presentations for ARCOS. So I mentioned LES and I mentioned the capital city. In Nebraska, it's a very boring area. There's not a lot going on, so we're very prideful in what we do have. So I put up the beautiful picture of our state capitol. That is obviously in Lincoln, like we said, your 4th grade geometry test. But what we're prideful there is it's a unicameral system. I won't explain that because I don't want to waste your guys' time, but we're the only one in the US, so we're very proud of that. Remember, we don't have much, so we're very proud. I mentioned Lincoln Electric System in the top left there, LES. What we're proud of there is actually in the state, we're a public power state. We're the only completely public power state in the US. It's another proud fact. We're completely owned by our customers all the way across the state, and that makes us pretty unique. Now, if I've lost you, how I'm going to bring you back is probably that red in. Might not stand out too much, but to most of you, that's how you can relate to Nebraska. We're very prideful of our teams, our collegiate teams, the University of Nebraska, which is in Lincoln, the Cornhuskers. We'll tell you every year that we're going to win the national championship next year. It doesn't matter the sport. We don't have a professional team, so that is what we have. I'll tell you, last year I can tell you our bowling team won the national championship. That's how prideful we are in every single sport. And for the Ohio State, we lost in the national championship volleyball last year, but I probably shouldn't have brought that up. But that's a little bit about me. So now you guys know who I am. You can be comfortable with me. We can ask questions and make this a good presentation. I want it to be two-way as much as we can. I also want a disclaimer, I'm not an ARCOS employee, so there's going to be things. What I talk about today is how it relates to LES, what we've done, and who we are with our crew manager. So there might be things that you guys are way beyond us. Talk to me, let me know, because I want to know. There might be some tips and tricks that you can take away from this, so that's the hopeful intent. The biggest takeaway for me is I want to learn something too, so let's please keep that two-way communication like I asked. So the partnership, how did ARCOS come into be? We had several gaps that we identified through gap analysis, through several things, but our biggest was, and we're a smaller utility, around 500 employees, we decided to take a big step and put in a new service center. So we had a north service center that served our whole town. We have multiple different buildings, our downtown where we can pay bills, we have our generation stations, but generally speaking, all of our operations and admin support came out of one building. So now we were going to split the town up into districts. So that adds some complexity to call out, that adds complexity to our resource management, how we know where our crews are, what resources do our crews have, and we knew that we needed a tool to help get us by. So come 2018, in December of 2018, with the help of ARCOS, we implemented Call Out, Mobile, Siren, and Crew Manager at LES to help us navigate through some of those gaps that we had. So our current practices, this is a big key to anyone who in this room who doesn't have crew management now or any type of implementation. Don't shy away from your current practices. That's your core, that's your business. You already do the business and you do it well. You're just trying to fill those gaps, streamline it, make it a little bit better. So keep those current practices the foundation of what you do and build off of that. Don't throw that out and try to get a whole new script of, oh, we have this new technology tool now, we'll rewrite it. I would not suggest that. But to talk about our current practices, what we were doing, and primarily the cores that I'll talk about today is blue sky and gray sky for us, so that storm perspective. But our blue sky, it was a homegrown tool. It was dubbed the cow. It was an acronym for something. I don't know what it stood for because it was in place for so long. But I can think of it as the cow because it was big, it was lazy, it didn't work well, it didn't want to operate the way we wanted it to, so it was a fitting name for it. It was so inefficient that sometimes the information that we did have going out wouldn't get posted until 11 a.m. in the morning. So if you can imagine, if you're an end user looking for that information, your day's already half gone. It's almost worthless information at that point. Our gray sky, a lot like the picture we see, is just full of sticky notes. And also, you can see she's kind of hoarding the books. We had a lot of siloing taking place. If you imagine in our distribution center, during storms, we had our operators who were responsible for a certain number of incidents or tickets, and they were responsible for those. Well, we might have duplication or redundancy, multiple tickets coming in. I'm sure we're not the only ones that experience that. A customer calls in 2, 3, 4 times, and we accidentally create another ticket. Well, that might go to another operator, and now we send multiple crews out there at the same time, or the job's already been complete, we send a crew. If you guys experience that, I was also a lineman in my past life, and I'll tell you, those calls aren't all bad. They might complain, but it's great to go there and act like you're going to do some work for 45 minutes, close your eyes. But if you can clean that up, you're going to be a more efficient utility. So again, with the build out, what we wanted to do was replicate our structure. This is key. You have a good foundation. Replicate that structure, but change the processes to get you to where you want to be. So there's my past life. When I thought of a blue sky day, I had this picture that somebody snapped when I used to be in the field. That is a blue sky day. I'm like a cat in the sun right there. It was a first warm spring day. I was laying on the warm concrete, and I thought, perfect, I'm where I want to be. So when you think of blue sky, that's what I think of. Not a lot going on. You can just kind of hang out. But what you want to do, the 4 keys that we wanted to do for our blue sky, and we're going to replicate these you'll see on the gray sky, but determine your end user groups. Always keep them in mind. Who are the people who you're trying to serve? Matt talked about that today. He kept talking about how they put out survey questions because he wanted to find out what the end users, us, ARCOS customers, wanted to see out of the product. It's no different. Ask the groups what they want to see because if you make assumptions, you're going to build a product that kind of fits, but it might not fit all the needs. Decide on the hierarchical organization, how it's going to look in Crew Manager, how you want that information to be displayed in that dashboard view. Consider the applicable extended attributes. Anyone who has crew manager knows that those extended attributes can get extremely complex. So consider what you want first, and then try to build those attributes to fit the needs that you have. And then develop some responsible parties in 2 groups, subject matter experts and your data input persons. Some of that data input can obviously come automatically, but you're going to have some people, especially during gray sky, who are maintaining and operating that system. So to peel into them a little bit more with our end user groups, again, consider the question, who needs to access this information? That's our customer. That's who we're trying to serve. We work for the utility, but we still have customers within that utility, different departments, different divisions, different work groups that ultimately want to view that information and how do they want to see it. So make sure you get that question answered with focus groups. Pull in people, your champions of the group. Pull them in and get those opinions and ideas. Develop one core perspective, and I think this is key once you get to the build-out phase. So now we know what we want to see. Build that. We talked as well, Darren did yesterday, if you were in that presentation, of setting out version 1. Don't wait for version 10. You know, if you get version 1 and you're ready to go, put that out there and build off of there. You're going to get new ideas. You're going to have different work groups who see the perspective that they want then and ask for additions and changes. So develop that core principle or that core perspective, excuse me. For us, it was T&D construction. We'll see if the laser pointer, I think it's going to be a little bit washed out. But here's what our folder tabs look like, and that's what I mean for our perspective tabs for our core. The core for us is T&D construction. That was the first one, version 1.0 that we put out. We satisfied the need with all of our T&D construction supervisors, and they had a dashboard view. From there, we knew we had business needs from our safety department, so they could see if there was any safety incidents or if they had to do any safety audits. They could look at the crews, where they're working, different information, but we used that core T&D construction and built off of it. So version 2. Version 3, version 4, so on down the line, we got mapping, our system control, our vegetation management, all of these different departments, all of these different teams who wanted a piece of the pie that we could tier off of that core. So keep that in mind. Build that one strong core. Don't try to build several of them all at once, because you're going to see a lot of likeness in between them anyhow. And then so your subject matter expert, they can just, once you have subject matter experts in those different departments or areas, then they can start to help you build those subcores from that main core. So the hierarchical organization, this is where we're going to get kind of keyed in. I noticed yesterday someone was smarter than I was and they grayed out the phone numbers. I didn't do that. If you guys want to have some fun, you can call these guys. They're great guys. Just let them know that I sent you so they can give me a punch in the arm when I get back. But keep it simple. That's the other key here, and I'll kind of highlight that when we wrap up. But don't get too complex with this, because you can get very complex, especially with the extended attributes. Keep it simple. So simple, it's like a coloring book. For us, at the bottom level there, you can see the green, and then you see the blue. That simply means the green is our Lincoln Operations Center, our South Operations Center, and blue is our North Service Center. So at a quick glance now, if I'm the safety department, if I'm the mapping, if I'm somebody during our ICS structure who is not in this often, at a quick glance they know, okay, I know which location they're out of. I know which district they're going to be serving during this event. And then from there, we tier it down. So if you see up in the top right, as big as that screen is, that's still kind of small. But at the top there, we have it first keyed by supervisor, which is just, I opened up one of these tabs here. So we have it by supervisor, and now in our crew cards, that second tier, we go by crews. So you can see the crew leader at the top, and then the resources that they have available to them, and all of the crew members that they have. And then the crew information, if you want to get more detailed, is in all those bubbles on the right side, and those are what I keep referring to as the extended attributes. And I'll get into a little more detail there. So again, you have a core, you have a business that you're already operating under, save that. So what was ours? With the cow that I mentioned, what were we publishing? What was going out there for viewability? Crew names and crew location, that was it. At 11 o'clock in the morning, when that finally hit our SharePoint site, I could look and I could see our crew names and I could see where they were working. Not a whole lot of information. So we had that core, and then we built off from there. What information, as we did these focus groups, as we pulled in the different departments, what information would be useful? And it's much longer than this, but for our T&D, I thought I'd keep it simple. So we added crew position titles. For those, sorry, I only got one laser pointer or the ability to do it, but crew position titles. So you can see next to this individual's name, you come over, crew leader, T&D. So I can see his title right there. So if I have a storm event and they're coming in, and I'll get to this shortly, I can quickly identify and make up crews on the fly pretty quickly because I know that what they're capable of doing by title. Availability status, so you see the blue and red circles, that red individual, they called in sick for the day. So at a quick glance, if I'm a supervisor now and I'm creating my crews on a blue sky day, and I have 4 of those red circles, I know right away I've got to ship that other person off because I'm not going to have a one-person crew going out, and I can drag and drop very easily and put them in place. Sharing between work groups makes that very simple because you can see who else might be short. A quick phone call to that supervisor and to say, hey, I've got 2 people, can I send them with your truck? Sure. On-site resources, so I mentioned a little bit, we've got our vehicles up here. This is just our vehicle labeling system. But if I look over here, you can see it says truck, single bucket, underground construction. Important during a blue sky, but that'll really come into play on a storm event so we know what resources we have and where, which can give you an idea of what work they're available to do. And then quick contact information with the phone number. Crazily enough, we didn't have that ability with that cow system. Can't say it enough, keep your end users in mind. They're the ones who are going to help build those extended attributes for you. Don't assume the information that they need. Ask them what information they need, and then use the extended attributes to build that. So the responsible parties. This will be key, as with any kickoff or any project that you do, is identifying your champions. Find the people who are passionate and want to do it. And you can break them down here to your subject matter experts, a single person or a unified group. I'll talk more in the storm perspective about it, but I would highly advise not having that be a single person. We tried that. It was me. It's stressful. Then you want to have a rights holder for the prospective changes. That's critical. So that was me again. I can make the changes. Everyone else has view access. You can break crew manager pretty easily if you don't know what you're doing. It's an easy tool to build, but there's a lot of formulas that go into the back end of it. I'm not a coder. Don't let me scare you with formulas. I did none of that. They're already pre-built. But if you don't know what you're doing and you take one aspect of the extended attribute away, it could break it all. So make sure you have rights to who can do that. And data input. These are going to be the individuals who put the input or put the data in on a daily basis. In a blue sky situation for us, it's the supervisors. So if you're an employee and you call in sick for that morning at 6:11, our supervisor gets into ARCOS and they mark them as unavailable. That schedule automatically feeds into crew manager. So if I'm a user and I have a call out for a bad transformer at 6:30, I already know that truck wouldn't be available because they already have 2 people that called in sick. I'm going to move on to the next one. So rather than in our past practice making 2, 3, 4 phone calls to find out what truck, then what truck's available, what people are available, the phone calls go back and forth, I can just look at the computer and I know I make that call out to that crew and we go. So the value, I won't spend too much time on this because that's kind of what I talked about the whole time was the value that we saw. Increased efficiencies, obviously. I just mentioned, that we just took 4 phone calls, back and forth communication to just 1 view and 1 call out. It's intuitive. If you have your rights set up correctly, there's no fear that anyone's going to break anything. It is so easy. I heard someone say it yesterday about a different solution, but you could almost turn someone loose in there with no instruction and they could figure out how to navigate it. It's a pretty easy tool. If you want to move crews, if you want to move resources, you just pick them up, move them to the next one, and you're good to go. There's not any typing, anything that you got to do, just a click of a mouse. So it's an extremely intuitive tool. And the viewability, it acts as a dashboard. If you want high-level, quick, easy information across your entire enterprise, this is a perfect tool for that, and it provided us great value there. So moving into gray sky. This is where we have a lot of fun. I think those of us in the utility we're very passionate when outages come through, and we all want to help. And I think that's what creates a lot of the issues is that we all want to help. So again, the 4 cores that we just talked about, but we're going to see some change now when we get into the details of them. So we need to determine our end user groups, communicate with them, decide on hierarchical organization, consider the extended attributes, and then develop those responsible parties. So we'll dive into those and see the differences now. So the biggest change we're going to see here is if you remember on the first slide in blue sky, we had it by north and south, and then we had it by supervisor. Now it's a much more simple view. Down here at the bottom, I just have an available tab, north and south, because we need to act quickly now. We have people out of power. We don't have time to think about what crews do they have, who's available. So what we had created in this chaos remedy, that's what I was talking about. Everyone wants to help in a storm. And sometimes you get all that help, and it's no help because everyone's trying to pull at the strings at the same time. So what this does is it places one person in charge. Initially in our distribution call center, for our operators, up here in the top right, if some of you have call out and you don't have this crew template, call your ARCOS rep and tell them you want that crew template, because it is an extremely helpful tool in a major event. What we do is we just have one storm perspective, and we have logic built in that when they select a call out and they select crew template on there with storm, as that individual answers the phone, and we'll see it in a little more detail in the next slide, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but as they answer the phone, they're automatically going to get placed into this available status. So now if I'm that subject matter expert or I'm that input data person that you identified, I see everybody, all of the resources that are available to me. For all of the incident tickets that I just got called in, I see 40 names. I see 30 names, however many, and from there I can build them out into this north and south group. The change in perspectives. I'm going to wait on, or changing perspectives, I guess, is make sure those who you have as your subject matter experts are trained in this to make a change in perspective, because 350 days out of the year, we're working out of one perspective. I might be working out of T&D construction, that core that we built. But now a storm came along, I need to know how to navigate to this different perspective, and it's very simple, 2 clicks. I'm taking too long here, I'm going to brush through a little bit. But so here's that view. So if you look, by selecting storm in our crew template, up here you can see that available in the green box. You can see those 2 individuals, I'm one of them, and there's a lot to see there. So now, remember, I just made a call out for 40 people. I needed several linemen. All 40 are going to be in that list. From there, if I'm the storm manager now, I can classify them based off of their work location, what district they're in, north or south. I'm not going to know everybody. There's a good chance. We have, I think, 13 new line techs starting on Monday. I can't keep up with them. So what we have, too, for these extended attributes is it'll say north or south. You can kind of see in that blue bubble next to the names in the blue north, that says north. The ones that I have for south, you can see in that amber or orange one, that says south. So when they come into available, I know what district they normally work out of, and I can keep them organized that way. Now, we all know it's not going to stay that way. If the south part of our district got hit harder, I can move them around. But I have that opportunity now to organize them as best as possible to where they show up every day and where their equipment's at. And I'll kind of talk about that with these extended attributes. So the key here, really quick, is, again, they're all going to get organized into one category with that crew template. Very important. So they all come in, and now it's my responsibility, one single person, not everyone who wants to help. I have the opportunity to organize them by incident. And I left these very generic, so I would update that during a normal storm. It wouldn't say crew 1 phone number. It would actually say the crew person's name, whoever's in charge, their phone number. So I would, all that same information that I had in Blue Sky. So the extended attributes, now we have some more logic, some more help, some things that we didn't have before that make us a more efficient and streamlined operation. In that red bubble, it says ETR. That's an editable field. So I can go in there and I can talk to the crew when they get out there. When do you think you're going to be complete with that project? I can type it in, and I'll have the work location typed in as well on that yellow bubble. And then another important one that we didn't have before, if you look next to my name, Rummery Frederick, the first green circle you see says 2.2. That's cumulative number of hours worked. So as soon as I answered that call out and took that call, that ticker started. So the logic that we have there that's cool is when I hit 12 hours, that's going to change to amber or orange. And then when I hit 14 hours, it's going to turn to red. So now, if I'm the storm manager, I know everybody from one look of a screen who needs to be going home soon. I'm sure we all have our union rules. We were very bad before because when our crews came in, they didn't want to leave because they were feeling like heroes too, and they were having a lot of fun and making okay money. And so it was not uncommon for them to stay on for 20 hours because they were just excited to be in there, and like I said, they were making great money. So it keeps us more honest because the reason we want to get them out of there is, one, to keep that rotation going well, but two, it becomes a safety issue. We want to make sure that they get their rest and they get out of there after 16 hours. We have ours set up for 12 and 14 in our union rules, and I'm sure everyone has different ones. They get a meal, and they get an hour to go eat it, so we want to get them out of there at that 15-hour mark. So that's why it lights up red at 14. So it keeps us much more honest, much better stewards to our employees to get them out of there at a responsible time, and that's how you can leverage the extended attributes during a storm. There's a lot of benefits, and I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. So our responsible parties, this will change as well. Your duty supervisor is what we call them. When we have a major event, we actually take the call-out aspect away from our operations center or our call-out center. So our operators then can just focus on the job. There's a lot going on. We're all aware of that. So that duty supervisor then, they are responsible, one, for making that initial call-out, and two, for designating those crews to answer right away. Now, I mentioned earlier it's important to have two individuals. Here's another reason why. One, to share the burden, and two, if you were in a major storm, and any of you who have an ICS structure know this is going to be old news, but you can rotate them on an 8-hour shift or a 16-hour shift. So the way we operate is our first person comes in, who's the storm manager. They're responsible for monitoring this information, maintaining and updating the information. Now at that 8-hour mark, the second person's going to come in, and they're going to share 8 hours so they can transfer that knowledge, talk about where their crews are at, help each other out for 8 hours. Now one person goes home and rests for 8, and you can see on so on and so forth. So one person for 8, two for 8, one for 8, and it just keeps replacing. Works very well for us, and I would highly encourage 2, if not more, people to share that role. And then they're just responsible for updating that information, like the work location, your ETR, and any crew changes that might take place. So the value, again, I highlighted many of these, but the biggest that it does for us is in that control center. It removes the silos. We don't have one dispatch operator who's now responsible for a crew or for a certain number of tickets. Now we tier that out to one person who can see all of the resources, not just one crew, and they're responsible for that. So we remove all those silos because now it gives them an opportunity to work in it by themselves, but also it removes the silos by creating that enterprise dashboard. Everybody can see all of the resources, where they're at, what they're working on at the same time. So that's big for your executive staff. There won't be phone calls going into your operations center as much because they don't need to ask the questions. They can just look at the information. And your public relations or your call center, they're going to get a lot of information out of that pretty quickly too. They're looking at your major outages. They can see them listed on there by address. They can see the estimated time of restoration and answer the customers without making several phone calls back and forth. And then the technological logic that we have for those cumulative hours worked and estimated time of restoration are huge benefits to us as well. So just in a general, crew manager efficiencies gained. It's the ability to review information in real time. It's that dashboard view that I just talked about. The employee exceptions, how they come over from schedule. We're not duplicating efforts. We're not writing that they're gone here, they're gone here, they're gone here. So all these different solutions know the answer to who's available, who's not. It's just one input by our supervisors. And a crew-specific call-out capability. I didn't talk about this too much, but within Crew Manager, we can actually select a crew on a blue sky day or on a gray sky day and call them directly. A use case for this was we had some theft on one of our job sites. Some individuals thought on the weekend they were going to hook up to our cable and drag it across 4 lanes of the interstate, and then they decided they didn't want the cable anymore. But we knew the crew who was working on that, so rather than bringing a crew in who was working a separate job, not familiar with it, we could actually call the specific crew. Word to the wise here, that does not impact any of your call-out rules that you have. So we're last attempt is how we do our call-out rules. If you call out a crew by crew, and the crew leader A got called that day because you called that crew leader A might still be first on the list for your next call-out, and you will hear that from your union when he got 2 call-outs on the weekend and they didn't get called. So just keep that in mind. And then the enterprise participation, it gives everyone the ability to view it at any time. So key takeaways, be methodical. Ask the questions. Don't assume. Make sure that you know the answer, you know a direction before you start heading in that direction. And probably one of the biggest, along with communication, is keep it simple. I can't say that enough. It's easier to put more toys into it than it is to take them back, because once you have them in there, we all know that it's frustrating that, hey, I used that, I want to keep that. So start small, start simple, and build up from there. Continue to ask questions from the groups. Communicate to the groups. Early on, make sure you identify and train your subject matter experts to ensure that they know the rules, the flow of how this is going to work, and they're not talking alien to other groups and not making sense. And then lastly, a huge theme here is ask. Consider the end users. Ask them what they want to get out of the product so that you're not making assumptions and going down the wrong path. But with that, I can open up to any questions, comments. Like I said, I want to know how you guys are doing business. I want to try to help you as best I can. I ran us up pretty close. I guess, no, we've got some time for questions. Perfect. But here's my contact information. If you don't see me this weekend, or this week now, excuse me, and have a chance to ask me in person, you certainly can reach out anytime. I'd be offended if you had a question and you didn't. So, but with that, I'll just turn it over to the group.
Oh, here?
No, you're okay.
Hey.
Where?
Yeah.
Good morning, Luke DeRuza from Tampa Electric. And first of all, I want to let you know I called Tyler Baker and he says hi. I'm just kidding you, of course. You know what I mean.
It'd be okay if you did.
That's it.
You would have picked a good one.
There you go. First of all, I want to commend you on how clean your crew manager perspective is. And I recommend this for anybody that's just starting up with crew manager, that go visit a couple of utilities that are using crew manager before you start down that venture of designing your own system, because you'll see companies that have got 50 million bubbles up top, attributes, and the way that they set up things may not fit your organization. And you may find one that'll save you a lot of time to, when you develop your system and your perspectives on what information you really need to have. And I agree with keeping it simple. But my question is, have you ever thought about setting up your crews? Like, I know you don't have hurricanes like we do down in Florida, but when we change our perspective from blue sky to storm, we've already got all our people set up in two-man crews. They know what truck, they know what crew leaders they're working with. They actually do it during crew picks. And that way it makes it very seamless. When a storm comes in, your crew's already set up for damage restoration.
Yeah, we don't. But so to your point first, before your question, I think that is an excellent point, and that is great advice. We work with several utilities. I know Pedernales is here. I don't think Zach De Leon is here, but we worked with him on our crew manager, and that's how we built it out. So that is awesome advice. But to answer your question, we don't have anything like that, and I think it's our biggest case. So you're saying that you ask crews who'd be available ahead of time, kind of on a standby, and then you build those crews?
A lot of crews are, during a storm, hurricane, more or less. During a storm, more or less, we're already in full activation.
Okay.
So if we're going into full activation, and we convert from 2 or 3 man crews and with apprentices to 2 journeymen and truck to do cut and clear, to get our main feeders back in right away. So they already know what truck they're in. Prior to the storm, they move their equipment, their tools over to that truck. So that way,
Gotcha.
After the storm passes and we get winds below 35 mile an hour, they just jump in, and they're already assigned a circuit to patrol, and they're at it.
That's awesome. And I don't want to refer to a hurricane as a luxury by any means, but we don't have that luxury, I'll say. Our biggest outages or storms that we have are tornadoes, high wind events. So those pop up, we don't know they're going to come until 30 minutes before. So again, not to call it a luxury, but we don't do that now. The biggest case where I will take that, and I think it's good, is ice storms. We can kind of forecast those and have a good idea, so we can maybe pre-stage some crews. And that's a great idea. So we could already have that storm perspective built out with those crews. So when they do get called in, we already know where they're going and who they're with. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Luke.
Art Romero at SD Genie. So to his point, good job in keeping your perspectives with not as many bubbles, because I know we littered our screen with badges, and the business was just irate because they couldn't understand what all these things meant. But the bubble that you track the hours, we actually used the push-pull, where you could create where they would work for 14 hours, and as they approach that 14-hour rule, their badge would change colors from green to yellow, orange, red. Is that how you set yours up, so you know when someone's going to go on the hog, so that you can actually readily see it in Crew Manager as they're changing color and approaching the maximum hours?
Yes. So we can see them in real time. As they hit that 12-hour mark, it's automatically going to change the color. The logic behind it for push-pull, I'm not sure how we have it set up. I can dig into it for sure and get you an answer pretty quick. But I think to answer the question broadly, hopefully I am, is yeah, we can. In real time, as that switches, we see those changes.
Justin Huggett from Dominion Energy. How often are your users using the PIT now or PIT to set future crews or change attributes? Not
often. I think that goes back to Luke's point, where we don't have those predetermined ideas of when these outages are going to be, just based on geographic region. Our biggest use case for PIT now is when a mistake was made, and we want to go back and reset. which is usually just an admin like myself who's working at the back end. But we have toyed around a little bit with our night techs, our troubleshooters, where we will actually move them, and this would be more in our blue sky, but we'll change the time, we'll go and assign that person to a specific truck, and then pit now to come back so everyone sees the real view, or you do. So we don't play with it too much in storm. We have played around with it a little bit for blue sky, just for those troubleshooters. Otherwise, our crews stay pretty constant, our construction crews, so there's not a whole lot of benefit there. But yeah, definitely for our troubleshooters. Are you guys using pit now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
If a crew comes in early, we'll bring them in, and then they might not be lodged that night, they'll be lodged the next day. They'll go ahead of time and change their required lodging to yes, so it's ready to go in the morning. Yeah.
That's my fault. I need to quit asking second questions. What's that? Can you repeat what he said? Yeah, so they're using the pit now mostly for lodging, if any of you. So we don't use lodging too much. We do have the component there. We would be pretty rusty if we have to have it. But yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity as well.
Chris Delzengel with Eversource. I'm involved with a lot of the training with crew manager, and I just wonder if you could talk about your training, how long it takes, and who you roll it out to, and what do you use to train?
Yeah, and it was Chris, right?
Yes.
Chris, I've got a class, I think at 4 o'clock, and it's going to be exactly on implementation. I don't want to broadcast my sessions too much in case I let someone down, but I'll cover some of that. But to answer your question here, for training purposes, how long did it take? Well, it's hard to quantify because we did it every step of the way. Our big platform, what I wanted to roll out was communicate, communicate, communicate. So at every step of the way, every change that we were going to make, we even took it to our line crews. Union representation, made sure that they were involved. So it's hard to really say. It wasn't just a sit-down training. I'll tell you, when we finally did roll out, our sit-down training was probably no more than 2 hours. But I think it was a smaller number like that, what I consider to be a shorter number, because they already knew what was coming. They could anticipate these changes. And I'm speaking to call out probably more so than crew manager. Crew manager, the training for the admin people on the back end was probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half, not too much.
And refresher trainings throughout the year?
Yep. So annual refresher trainings, of course, and those are your standard hour meetings. Yep.
How about the documentation that you use? Do you create hard copies, use stuff online?
Yeah. Yep. So the online documentation, I would, for whoever your admin is with ARCOS, that's a great place to start. But then I just built user documents that said step 1, step 2, step 3 with arrows. Here's what you're going to do, and then a description next to it. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to make it too much of a spreadsheet or things like that. Just a picture, what you need to do. And like I said, it's a very intuitive system. Anyone can hop in there, even if without instruction. And after enough playing around and mistakes, they could figure out how to fumble their way through it pretty easily.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for Frederick? Looks like, okay.
Just one more comment for Pit now. In our distribution crews, not necessarily in substation where I'm at right now, but what we do is we go forward in time to the next day in the perspective and change the work at 2:30 that afternoon for the next day. And at 5 a.m. automatically in the morning, we have it set to where it will update what the crews are going to be doing that day. So basically, our on-call supervisor goes in and pre-stages the work for the next day. We'll call the crews and find out what's remaining to do. Are they going to finish up their job? They need another job. They'll set up the perspective, and at 5 a.m. in the morning, it will automatically, change over. And, we use Pit now to go back to point in time right now, to reset the bar, but it's a very good feature. It saves a lot of time in the morning. Now, there's still going to be people that call in sick or take an unplanned vacation day. You can make those slight adjustments, but there's not a lot of movement in the morning if you go back and set the next day's work for your crews.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's organization at its peak. If you're planning your work and inputting that already, that's an excellent use of Pit now to change that point in time. Anyone who's not familiar with the Pit that we're talking about, it's point in time. So you can change and make changes in the future, and it doesn't change until you hit that schedule time. So you can make all the changes, click Pit now, so it goes to point in time now, comes back to where you're at, so you have the view real time. So like Luke was saying, they're coordinating or scheduling or organizing their crews the day before. So when their supervisors or whoever's responsible, in our case a supervisor, comes in and needs to organize their crews, it's already done. So they can just drink their coffee at that point.
Frederick, John Chapman, ARCOS, professional heckler. Told you I'd get a question in for you. Great presentation, by the way. Just selfishly, I haven't heard much about ETRs and crew manager. Can you talk a little bit about how you're using a system like ARCOS to help you with that and what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So ETR was always a concept before ARCOS, mostly from our communications team of we want to be able to tell our customers when they can expect power. There's not many industries out there where you don't know when you're going to get, especially this day and age. I can look on my phone and see my Amazon package is 3 steps away, and if it takes more than 15 minutes, I'm upset. So imagine now you're out of power, as we all can imagine, and we're on both ends of that, and you don't know when you're going to be without power. That was a norm 5 years ago. You just knew, well, I guess when they get to us, we're going to have power again. So we had always had that conversation, and we're in the Midwest, so I'm sure you guys had those conversations sooner. News travels a little slower to us. But the way that we were able to leverage that was we knew that we could get the time. It's very simple to ask the crews, when is this power going to be restored? What's your best estimate? We could get that information. Now, how do we get it out to our customers? So our best avenue or best channel that we could leverage ARCOS with was with that dashboard view. So with that extended attribute of ETR, and it is the easy extended attribute you can have, just double click in it, type your time, and now everyone within the company, anyone who has any interest on that particular outage, so next to ETR was work location in that yellow bubble. So they see the work location, they can tie that to the outage on our GIS map, and now they know, okay, at 1700, that outage should be resolved. And we can communicate that to our customers. So we've taken that a step further, a little bit of a duplicated effort, so maybe we can talk to ARCOS and work through this, but we have a dashboard that goes out to our customers, so we can actually then take that information, place it on our dashboard, so we don't have to have that communication personally. Our customers can just get online, see where they're at on the map, and ETR right there to see when they're going to have power back. If you guys aren't using ETR right now, tread lightly. There's going to be a lot of pushback. I pushed back. That's for someone in construction who used to be in construction, that's a tough answer to give. You're going to get a lot of reservations of, well, I think it's going to be 2 hours, and now you're going to get mad at me when it's 5 hours. So you need to just bridge that gap, make sure that there's no repercussions. But I hope I answered, John. Yeah, I think it gave us the ability to view it. And instead of just one person making the phone call and saying, okay, it's 1700, you'll be done, and then that person knew it. Great. We needed to get that information out there, and the dashboard allowed that with Crew Manager.
Last call for questions for Frederick. Okay. Frederick, thank you so much. What a great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Don't forget to fill out your surveys. And I think we've got a start time at 11 for the next session, but we'll give it a couple more minutes just to break because this butts up to the lunch. So if we run over, we'll just be in the back of the line. So thank you.
Thanks for everyone's questions. Really helpful.